Straight question, no warm-up. Would you hand your house keys to a stranger and go live in theirs? Most people's gut answer is no, absolutely not. And honestly, that's the correct instinct for a stranger. But I want to spend the next half hour taking that question apart properly because I think the word stranger is doing almost all the work in that sentence, and once you change what stranger actually means, the whole answer changes with it. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments before we start, and if you're new here, welcome to a series I call Insider Series with Unswap, and this conversation sits right at the center of something we have spent the last while building, which I'll get into properly later. This episode isn't really about home swapping as a concept, it's about trust, how we build it, how we've been told to build it, and why the version most of us were taught doesn't actually fit how our careers work. Let's start with where the fear comes from because it's not irrational. It comes from every open rental platform most of us have ever used or watched a friend use. A photo, a star rating, a handful of reviews that could be from anyone. That's the entire trust mechanism. You're taking someone's word, backed by strangers' words, about a stranger. For most transactions, that's fine. A weekend booking, low stakes, easy to walk away from if it goes wrong. But home swapping is a different category of decision. You're not evaluating whether someone will be a tidy guest for 3 nights. You're deciding whether to hand over your actual home, the place your children sleep, where your belongings are, sometimes where sensitive documents or work materials might sit, to someone you have no real way of vetting. So when people hear home swap, the image that comes to mind is exactly the scenario that should make anyone hesitate, swapping with a genuine unknown, verified by nothing more than an app's onboarding form. And for this specific audience, UN staff, people in roles where discretion and security aren't optional extras, that hesitation isn't overcautious. It's appropriate. If that were the only version of home swapping on offer, I'd tell you not to do it either. First one for the comments. Honestly, would you ever use an open, general public home swap platform for a posting? Not hypothetically, would you actually do it? Say yes or no and say why. Here's what I think actually happens when people reject home swapping outright though. They're not rejecting the concept, they're rejecting the version of it they've seen, which is genuinely a version worth rejecting. But then look at what most people end up doing instead. They post their home with a management agency they've never met in person, who they found through a recommendation 3 postings ago, who takes a cut and has limited accountability for who actually ends up living there. Or they leave the property empty and pay someone to check on it once a month. Or they just absorb the diplomatic premium entirely and pay double for years. None of those are actually lower risk than a swap. They just feel lower risk because they don't require you to consciously evaluate a specific person. The risk is just distributed differently, spread out, delayed, harder to see, but not smaller. So the real question isn't swap or don't swap. It's which version of trust are you actually comfortable outsourcing to, and why does one feel safer than the other when the underlying risk might be similar or worse? Here's a composite pattern, not one individual, but something I've heard versions of enough times to treat as representative. Someone posted overseas, property left with a local agent for years across multiple rotations. Never met a single tenant. Never had real visibility into who was actually living there at any point, only ever heard about problems after they'd already happened. And by the time they did hear, there was very little they could do about it from another continent. Technically managed. In practice, closer to blind trust in an intermediary they'd never vetted either. Compare that to a swap with someone whose professional identity is verified the same way yours would be. Same institutional email domain, same posting history, same understanding of what rotation actually means day to day. Which one is the stranger, really? Second one, agree or disagree. Someone verified through their UN or agency email is less of a stranger than an unvetted rental agent I've never met. Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to see where people stand on this. So let's actually redefine the word properly because I think this is where the whole debate turns. A stranger, in the risky sense, is someone about whom you have no verifiable information beyond what they've chosen to tell you. That's the general marketplace model. Self-reported, unverifiable, effectively anonymous behind a username and a profile photo. Now take someone whose identity is confirmed through an institutional email, a UN Secretariat account, or an equivalent at UNDP, UNICEF, WHO, UNHCR, the World Bank, the IMF. That's not self-reported. That's third-party, verified by an employer that has its own vetting standards, its own accountability structures. You're not trusting a stranger's word. You're trusting the same institutional layer of verification that governs your own career. Layer onto that a closed network, meaning the only people who can even be in the pool are people who've cleared that same bar, and the entire category shifts. It stops being, would you swap with a stranger, and becomes, would you swap with a colleague adjacent professional verified the same way you are, inside a system that only admits people like you? That's a genuinely different question, and I think most people's honest answer to it is different too. Then there's the second layer, which is just as important as verification, what's actually changing hands. In a cash rental, you're a landlord to someone you don't know, full stop, transaction complete. In a reciprocal credit-based exchange, you're both peers in the same system. Hosting earns you the equivalent toward being hosted elsewhere, nothing expires, and neither side is in a purely commercial landlord-tenant posture. It's structurally closer to a professional exchange between people who understand each other's situation than a transaction between two people with nothing in common except an app. Here's the one I actually want your honest answer to, not the polite one. If the stranger is verified through the same institutional email system you use every day, does the discomfort actually go away for you, or is there something else underneath it that verification alone doesn't solve? Comment below. I'll read a few of these before we close. Here's the reframe I want you to leave with. Stranger was never really about whether you'd met someone. It was shorthand for unverified. And once verification is handled properly, at the institutional level, the word stops applying. What's left isn't a stranger, it's a peer you simply haven't met yet, inside a system built specifically so that gap doesn't matter the way it would on an open platform. Once you separate unfamiliar from unverified, the fear that stopped a lot of people from even considering home swapping starts to look like it was pointed at the wrong target. This is exactly the distinction Unswap is built around, and I want to be direct about that rather than let it sit in the background. Unswap only admits UN Secretariat staff and people from affiliated organizations, UNDP, UNICEF, WHO, UNHCR, the World Bank, the IMF, and similar institutions. Verification runs through your institutional email where possible, fast-tracked, or through manual document review if it isn't. Nobody gets in without clearing that bar, which means by the time you're looking at a potential swap, stranger has already been replaced by verified peer. The exchange itself runs on credits, not cash. A night hosted earns a credit. Credits don't expire, and they're simply frozen, not lost, if your subscription lapses. It's built to feel like an exchange between people who understand the same career rhythm, not a rental transaction with someone you'll never actually get to know. I'm not pretending this part is neutral, of course I'd like you to take a look. But even setting that aside, I hope tonight changed how the word stranger sits with you the next time this comes up. Last question before we wrap, what would it actually take for you to feel fully comfortable with a home swap? Beyond verification, what's the missing piece? I read every answer, and it genuinely shapes what we cover in the next one. If this episode shifted anything for you, tell me in the comments. Did stranger stop meaning what you thought it meant? If you want to see how the verification actually works, the waitlist link is in the description. And if you know someone who's dismissed home swapping outright without really examining why, send them this one. I'll see you on the next one. Let's do something fun before we end today's episode. No long story, no deep dive. 30 questions, 30 answers about Unswap. Some of these are things I get asked constantly. A couple of them are just fun, and a couple might genuinely surprise you. Drop it in the comments if you're ready, and let's go. Let's answer some fun fact questions before we end today's episode. If you're new here, by the end of this you'll know more about Unswap than most people who've been following for months. Let's move fast. 1. What actually is Unswap? a home exchange platform built exclusively for UN Secretariat staff and people at affiliated organizations. Think UNDP, UNICEF, WHO, UNHCR, World Bank, IMF. You swap homes during postings instead of paying for 2 households at once. 2Y, Unswap. Is that a typo for Uniswap? No, and I get this question a lot, completely unrelated. Uniswap is a crypto exchange. Unswap is about swapping homes. Different word, different world. Anyone posted or rotating internationally under a managed mobility policy, UN Secretariat and affiliated international organization professionals. That's a combined eligible audience of over 100,000 people globally. 3. What problem is it solving? What I call the diplomatic premium, paying full rent or hotel rates in a new posting while your own home sits empty back where you came from. 5. Is it a rental platform? No. No cash changes hands between members for the swap itself. It's reciprocal. You host, you earn credits, you use those credits to stay somewhere else. 6. How does verification work? 2 paths. Fast track, if you're on an approved institutional email domain. Manual document review, if you're not. Either way, nobody gets access without being verified. 7. Where's Unswap based? I'm building it from Nairobi, but the whole point is that it's global. It's built for people who move, not for one city. 8. Is it live yet? It's in active development. The waitlist is open right now, and that's genuinely the best way to get early access when it launches. Which of those 8 did you already know? Comment the number. 9. How do credits work? 1 night hosted equals 1 credit. Simple as that. 10. Do credits expire? No, they never expire. If your subscription lapses, they're frozen, not deleted. They're just waiting for you. 11. What's the accelerated rate? If you're hosting short-term, you earn credits at 1.5 times the standard rate. 12. What happens if I get a swap request I don't want? You can counteroffer, and that counteroffer has a 7-day expiry window before it lapses. 13. What if a confirmed swap gets canceled? If it's canceled within 48 hours of the confirmed date, that exchange slot is treated as used. 14. How many subscription tiers are there? 5, ranging from an annual tier up to a lifetime access option. 15. What's the most premium tier called? Lifetime access at $3,143, 1 payment, no renewals. 16. Why credits instead of cash at all? Because the moment money changes hands, it starts feeling like a landlord-tenant transaction with a stranger. Credits keep it reciprocal, your peers in the same system, not a host renting to a guest. 17. Is there a mobile app? Right now, the focus is the platform itself, web-first, built on React, Next.js, and Postgres under the hood, if anyone's curious about the stack. Anyone here already on the waitlist? Comment in if you are. 18. What's the diplomatic premium, in one sentence? The extra cost, financial and emotional, of paying twice for housing during a posting, once where you live, once for the home you left behind. 19. What's the blue passport niche? Shorthand I use for the specific audience Unswap serves, people whose careers run on international postings and UN-affiliated diplomatic mobility. 20. What does walled garden mean in the Unswap context? It's the opposite of an open marketplace. Only verified members get in. That closed structure is the whole trust model 21. What's vouch to verify? Part of how trust gets reinforced inside the network, verification isn't just a one-time check, it's built to be reinforced by the community itself. 22. What does home leave mean for anyone outside the UN system watching? It's the periodic leave international staff get to return to their home country during a posting, a concept baked into how Unswap thinks about timing and availability. 23. What's posting versus mission in Unswap terms? A posting is a longer managed rotation to a new duty station. A mission is typically shorter and more specific. Both create housing gaps. Unswap is built with both in mind. 24. What's Phase 3 on the roadmap? A B2B offering, a relocation API, essentially mobility as a service, for international organizations themselves, not just individual members.